Hi everyone.
Hello. I'm excited because it's one of our favorite videos to do is ACOTAR theories. And I'm even more excited because
I found an Elain. Pro Elain.
I mean, she found it.
Yeah, I tell you, I look. This is more of like,
is it leaning towards Elaine's book?
Yes.
More than anything, not necessarily what ship you're on.
And Silverlinedeyes is an Ariel shipper, and I went on hers and I found some things. Yeah. So I found this from her Tumblr, and it's, again, Silverlinedeyes. And you guys should follow her because she's pretty good. I like her theories that she comes up with. She has a lot of theories. So this one is the Azriel and Lucian setup, why it means Elain's book is next. And we've done a why we think Azriel's book is next theory, or why some people think Azriel's book is next. And that has some pretty good points as well, I remember.
Or what are you again? Remind me. Do you think it's Elain or Azriel?
I think it's Azriel. I think there's just more with Azriel's story, but when I read this makes sense.
I think I thought originally after we read Silver Flames, it was Azriel's because of the extra scene, Azriel's extended scene. So I thought it was Azriel's, and then everyone's like, "Oh, but she's trying to they've read that she's trying to finish out the sisters." So that's where.
Yeah, and I remember when we discussed if it was Azriel's book. I do know we did talk about, everyone knows that Elain will have a book. They just didn't think it was going to be the next book.
So it could be Elain's book, and Azriel's scene just set up for it? Whether they end together or not.
Maybe. I mean.
Or is it Azriel?
Yeah, we don't really know.
If it's Azriel's book, it's basically going to be... So that's the one thing...
And that's what they discussed
with Azriel, it will be the three.
Girls, yeah.
You know, so I can see whatever. Or it's just... Maybe it's really nothing big, and it's Elain's book, and he chooses Gwen, and she has to move on. You know? Who knows?
Yeah, we don't know.
I hope not.
I hope so.
We need the drama. We need the drama in our life.
Okay. So again, this is from Silverlinedeyes on Tumblr. And it is the Azriel and Lucian setup, why it means Elain's book is next. So she says, I was rereading this article. She posts the article on her Tumblr. So if you want to see it, you would have to go to her Tumblr to this post. And it says, and in particular, this part. So a court of Silver Flames follow-up Elain's story. The most obvious choice for the character at the center of the next book would seem to be Elain. She's the Archeron's sister we know the least about, and who probably has the most unanswered questions around her story. She seems to have adjusted to being high fae more quickly than Nessa did, certainly, but she's had her fair share of problems along the way, and likely many that we as readers never saw. Elain is a seer, but we have little understanding of her powers or what they mean. She's adorably close with the Shadow Singer Azriel, but mated to Lucian. The sort of naturally heartbreaking setup that lends itself to a good and likely tragic romance. Since both Rhys and Feyre and Ness and Cassian are mates, who also have chosen each other romantically, we've never actually seen what happens if it turns out you're mated to someone you don't actually like all that much. Lucian's involvement in Elain's tale would also be a natural way to bring Tamlin and the Spring Court more fully back into focus. Plus, Lucian is an intriguing character in his own right, and this would be a natural way to include him more fully in the story as well.
And I love Lucian. And you know what? I really think Lucian will find a love. I think, with it's Elain or Vasa, I think he will end up with someone. And I want him to because I really do like Lucian. I really do. And I think even if they did end together, I think I would end up liking it. But I do agree. This would be a great way to bring them together, bring the Spring Court back. Because I would also like this to then fall into Tamlin.
Yeah,
Really
I know
would.
Tamlin's a sore subject around a lot of people, but we actually would
We
like
want a redemption arc.
Yeah, we would. So I think he deserves one now. So that's my opinion.
And if it's going into back to Spring Court and bringing Lucian and all that, Tamlin will again have more to in play.
Yeah.
I think.
So she goes back and says, and it made me think of how Sarah J. So that was her posting the article on her Tumblr.
Okay.
So this is her now. And it made me think about how Sarah J. Maas has been setting up for Elain's story since a Court of Mist and Fury. Even starting that early in this series, we see Sarah setting up these two possible paths for Elain, Azriel and Lucian. Indeed, in A Court of Mist and Fury, we get Feyre musing about what would happen if Elain ever came to Velaris, and she says, I think Elain would like it too, though she'd probably cling to Azriel just to have some peace and quiet.
I would too.
I smiled at the thought at how handsome they would be together. If the warrior ever stopped quietly loving more, I doubted it. Azriel would likely love more until he was a whisper of darkness between the stars. Here, for the first time, Sarah plants the seed in our minds that Azriel and Elain might actually be good together. If the warrior ever stopped quietly loving more, of course. And then, at the end of the book, obviously, we get this scene. Dark Eyes met one eye of russet and one of metal. Nesta was still weeping, still raging, still inspecting Elain. Lucian's hand blackened at his sides. His voice broke as he whispered to Elain, "You're my mate." Elain has a mate, Lucian. Of course, throughout ACOTAR and A Court of... What's FAS?
Frost and
Starlight. Gosh. We continue to see these two paths develop or not develop for Elain. We see her grappling with the fact that she belongs to another and her rejection of that whole concept. And we see her gravitating towards Azriel.
Well, and also, doesn't it, Sarah J. Maas said, I thought this, am I making this up? No, I think I'm not. That we have not seen someone reject a mating bond, and we will eventually, or did I make that up in my head? I don't
remember that, but
or did I hear someone else say that, and I'm just thinking that she'll...
I don't know. Maybe that's your own wishful thinking.
Yeah.
In your head.
Partially true. I still wouldn't be surprised if he tricked her.
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Okay, go on.
We get signs that maybe Azriel is still... You drink it. We get signs that maybe Azriel is still right for Elain, not Lucian. For example, we see Madja say that a mate can sense what is wrong with their mate, and yet Azriel is the one who figured out Elain is a seer and gives her the relief of understanding what is wrong with her.
And he always
is in quotation.
And he always seems to like go to her and know when she's not feeling right. He was the only one that could get through to her. Even Lucian couldn't.
And we see Azriel sense Elain is taken by the cauldron and save her. We see a figurative bridge between them with Truth Teller. And we see for the first time someone, Feyre in this instance, question if the cauldron was wrong and Azriel and Elain really should have been mates.
See, she's even throwing those breadcrumbs out there. Could the cauldron be wrong? Then also, and Feyre has noticed it from their first meeting, or not? Yeah, Azriel and Elaine's first meeting. Remember they went to the cottage at dinner. Like Feyre has always seen something.
Elain sat silently at one of the wrought iron tables. I can't read, guys. Wrought iron tables. A cup of tea before her. Azriel was sprawled on the chaise lounge across the gray stones, sunning his wings and reading what looked to be a stack of reports, likely information on the Autumn Court that he planned to present to Rhys once he sorted through it all. Already dressed for the hewn city, the brutal, beautiful armor, so at odds with the lovely garden, and my sister sitting within it. Why not make them mates? I mused. Why Lucian? It says, you said your mother, and so this is another part in the book. You said your mother and father were wrong for each other. Tamlin said his own parents were wrong for each other. I peeled off my dressing robe. So it can't be a perfect system of matching. What if I jerk my chin toward the window to my sister and the shadow singer in the garden? That is what she needs. Is there no free will? What if Lucian wishes the union, but she doesn't? A mating bond can be rejected, Reese said mildly, his eyes flickering in the mirror as he drank in every inch of bare skin I had on display. There is choice, and sometimes, yes, the bond picks poorly. Sometimes the bond is nothing more than some preordained guesswork at who will prevail the strongest offspring.
So for her putting that in the book, is that also breadcrumbs that will eventually happen?
Well, there's breadcrumbs for everything. I think we've discussed this many times with even Gwenriel. There's breadcrumbs for Gwenriel, there's breadcrumbs for
I'm trying to think
Elriel.
if there could be another mate that will reject. Have we discussed any other mates that could have a rejection?
I don't know. I am on a theory right now that I'm looking at. I was going to do, but it's really long, so I kind of have to look at it and kind of go over it first. And it has to do with mates and with the Asteri. If the Asteri kind of hijacked it. We'll put that one up, but it was just so long I really have to sort through it, so we shall see what that one says, and maybe kind of has some basis off of this too. At its basis level, it's perhaps only that, some natural function, not an indication of true paired souls. So then she says, then in A Court of Frost and Starlight, we see that Lucian and Elain remain uncomfortable around each other. Neither of them wants to spend time with the other. Elain again reminds us that she owes Lucian nothing, and he is not entitled to her affection just because he is her mate. Yet we see Elain continue to gravitate towards Azriel. He approaches her on solstice. He makes everyone wait for her to eat. He gets him a gift and causes his most joyous laugh. They talk into the night after solstice about her garden. And then, of course, in A Court of Silver Flames, Lucian's voice drips with discomfort when he speaks of his mate. And Elain loses her newfound boldness around him and shrinks into herself.
She's not comfortable with him.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile...
But she can hear his heart beating through the walls.
Yeah. And maybe too, she's not... because she doesn't know Lucian, she knows Azriel.
Yeah, she's really
so she's comfortable with Azriel. So she may be just more leaning
Lucian
towards
has
Azriel.
Been trying. She just is not
right. So
anything.
So that could be case too. You know, she likes Azriel a lot, so she's not liking that she's mated with someone else. If that is the case, so that could be too. She just is not opening herself up to it.
Yeah.
So anyways, meanwhile, we learn Azriel's avoiding the river house because of Elain. We see him protective of her. We see a changed glance between them. He follows her laugh. We learn that he can't stand to be around Lucian's mating bond. We learn they both want each other, and that Azriel looks at her headache powder every night before he falls asleep. And we learn he, like Feyre, is questioning if the cauldron was wrong.
Mm-hmm. It was. I know it.
Yes. Why? What is the purpose of this buildup? It has always been about Elain and what her choice will be. Will she choose Lucian?
She's a center between Lucian and Azriel.
Yeah. Will she choose Lucian, her fated mate? Or will she choose Azriel, the person who might actually be a better match for her?
Chosen love.
Sarah has been setting up Elaine's choice since A Court of Mist and Fury. And that's why Elaine's book is next and not Gwenriel. Because if it's Gwenriel, then it stops being about Elaine's choice and becomes about Az's choice between Elain and Gwen.
Mm-hmm.
Whom we just met, by the way. But of whom we got more story of.
Is that your own personal 2 cents?
I'm putting my personal 2 cents in that. We got to know Gwen more than we know Elaine. I will say that much. But in Azriel, in that scenario,
was because of Nesta's point or part of it. So, I mean, that's why you got a little bit more.
Yes. And Azriel in that scenario will ultimately choose Gwen, and Elain would not make a choice. She would be with Lucien by default. And if that happens, what was the point of all this setup? Of giving Elain those two paths if someone was going to make the choice for her, essentially.
That's true.
She says, no, that's not going to happen. The triangle has always been Elain, Azriel, and Lucien. It will not be Azriel, Elain, and Gwen.
Yeah, I agree. I think that has to be solved before he can even if it doesn't end with Azriel, that triangle has to be solved first before he can even go to Gwen. You know, he has questions there. Whether it comes, it ends up that
I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it kind of coincides together. Maybe. I know there's a triangle between Lucien,
we need
Azriel, and Elain. And I do think that needs to be sorted out as well.
We've also said this is going to go like completely some other way, turn sideways, and you have no idea. And it will,
do I think the next book is going to be a Gwenriel book? No. I never thought that it was going to be a Gwenriel book. I've always thought it was just going to be Azriel's. And
Gwen would be in it.
Gwen would be in it, but I never thought it was going to be a full-fledged love story of Gwenriel.
I think it probably will be more Elain.
Next book?
I do. I mean, at first I thought it was Azriel, and sometimes I go back to having Azriel, but I do agree. I could see her more finishing off the sisters first. I don't know. I go back and forth.
I mean, I get the whole, we've said this before, I get the whole, I go back and forth too, and it's not just because I'm a Gwenriel, that's not it at all. There was just more evidence with Azriel. That's just what sticks in my head. And he got that chapter. So that's in my head. But then again, it's I don't know.
Elain will have a book.
Yeah.
Is it next? Or is it...
Or is it one that's going to close out the series? We don't know.
True.
It started off with the Archer and the sister, and it might close with an Archer and the sister. So, I don't know. I really don't know. I think... we're kind of up in the air. I say this, it has nothing to do with Gwenriel. It's just, I just see, there was just so much more with Azriel than there was with Elain at the end.
And obviously, we're going to have to get to know Elain in the next book. Whether it is Azriel's book, you're going to start to see Elaine's character more, no matter what. It's going to build up for then when she does get a book.
And I do think Elain and Azriel will have a relationship, a romantic one. I never thought they wouldn't.
Yeah.
Regardless if they're endgame or not, I've always thought they're gonna have a relationship. They like each other. They're
attracted.
They're into each other. Yeah. And
I think even if there's something with Gwen, he wants to play that out a little bit.
With Azriel and Elain.
Yeah. Azriel will want to play that out.
Right now, I've said this before. Right now, Elain is the one he's going after.
It's just now he has Reese in the mix. Don't go see her. Don't go talk to her.
And Gwen,
or not talk to her, see her, but stay away from that.
And Gwen now at the end of the POV is a thought in his head. Yes, and I know a lot of Gwenriels are like, oh, he's their endgame, or endgame. I'm realistic. I know. It was just at the end of the POV, and they had looks at each other. He did save her, and all that kind of stuff.
By him saving her, there is a connection there as well.
Yeah,
might not be the type that a romantic, but there is something there that they have a connection that is there.
Someone's in here over there
making noises.
But I thought it was good. She did a good job. I mean, I read Ariel's stuff as well, and I go, that makes sense. I'm not one Gwenriel that goes, no, I don't think so.
We also have said we set ourselves up so we're not really sad either. We prepare.
But I do like to see other points, because it does.
It's one of those things that you go back and forth on. You can see both ways. And then, sometimes I'm no, it is going to go my way. But then I'm oh, shoot, that makes total sense. Yeah, and I don't like it, but I see it. Yeah.
And when I read this one, I don't disagree with it at all. and
I just wish it would be the other way, regardless.
Yeah, but I'm not saying like, no, I don't agree. Like,
I mean, that's
and
the same.
so that's where it's like I do see it. So that is Elaine's book next.
Well,
she did a pretty good job.
I'm proud of you that you found that for me.
I find a lot of them.
You've been doing a lot lately. I used to do them all, and now you've been doing them all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She loves me. I don't know. I think that was a good theory. I do think that, even with Gwen, though, I agree that, like, there are some times that I see and it makes sense to me. It just doesn't necessarily mean that's how I would like it to go. But I can see, like, how that would make sense. Or the little breadcrumb. Well, she's thrown breadcrumbs, like you said, on both sides. For Elaine and for Gwen. I mean,
for Lucian
and she's smart.
Elaine.
She did that to throw us all off. She did that. And people think they really know, but they don't. And even if, like, she does go your ship, we really don't know. I mean, she did it so perfect that, I like to say I see more towards Elaine, but you like to say, well, you know more about Gwen and you see more towards Gwen. So, I mean, it's just one of those things.
I think that's a part of it. I think we just got a lot more Gwen than we did Elaine, so I kind of grew to like Gwen. Now, once we get more to know Elaine, I know I'll like her, so. Yeah. But yeah, so that's pretty much.
Well, that's our next theories, guys, and we're and this is one of our shortest, I think. My goodness.
Well, we're going on vacation,
20
so
minutes.
I had a very long one.
Yeah, she did say she had a long one.
It would have taken a very long time. But so we're gonna do that when we get back from our vacation. So,
anyways, we would love for you to subscribe and like our video, and we will see you again. We have another theory she just said very soon. Bye.